Hello to you Shadow Priests tuning in. So in a few hours, the new patch notes drop for all the buffs and nerfs for Shadow Priests, and I just wanted to quickly go over them and give you guys my thoughts and opinions. So let's dive right in here. Alright, so Shadow. Increase the mana cost of Powered Shield to 5% of base mana from 4%. So Shadow Priests already go casting 4 flash heals. And you're going to be pressing Powered Shield a lot during fights, in Arena and Battlegrounds. So, I don't know, that 1% is kind of a big deal in the long game. And you might only be able to squeeze out 3 flash heals before you go now. I don't know, I'm being dramatic maybe, but it's too early to tell. Obviously, it's not live yet. But definitely a hit to survivability and healing. Alright, Vampiric Touch damage increased by 10%. So that's great news. Vampiric Touch didn't deal that much damage for being a castable dot, so I'm glad they're buffing that by another 10%. I guess Blizzard really wants to go into a dot rot type of Shadow Priest playstyle this season, because obviously, I'm getting to it, but they nerfed the Mindbender build. Shadow Word Pain damage increased by 10% for Shadow only. So I like how they put for Shadow only, because if you guys remember in Shadowlands, Shadow Word Pain dealt more damage for Discipline and Holy Priest than for Shadow Priest, so they had to specify it. So that's really nice. I'm glad that Shadow Word Pain actually deals more damage as a Shadow Priest instead of the other healing specs now. So that's always, that's always cool to hear. Shadowy Apparition damage increased by 10%. Okay, I'm a fan. I'm all for it. I love that talent. I always play with Shadowy Apparitions. It's a really fun talent to have. Devouring Plague damage increased by 10%. Great news. I'm guessing that's to the direct damage also. So you're getting 10% from the direct damage, 10% increase to the dot that ticks. So a little bit more direct damage with the buff to Devouring Plague. Void Bolt damage increased by 20%. So I usually run Dark Ascension like 90% of the time. So for all of you Void Form fans out there, this is great news for you guys. Mind Blast damage increased by 20% for Shadow only. So this is probably the biggest buff so far. Like, that's insane. 20% more on, or number 1 direct damage ability. That's cool. I'm a big fan of that. That's Blizzard's trying to make some trades here. They're like, okay, we know we nerfed your best Mindbender build, so here, have some dot buffs and direct damage buffs. That's cool. Mind Spike damage increased by 20%. I'm a fan of that too. That's really nice to hear. Mind Spike deals 3.5k, 4k damage on average to people, and people have 300k, 400k health pools, so you do the math there. So we really could use a buff on Mind Spike, so I'm glad they did that. 20%'s kind of a big deal, so kudos to you, Blizzard. Mind Flay damage increased by 20%. That's really nice to hear too. I like playing this dot and rot build, and I'll pull it up real quick. I like to play with Flay and rot. I'll pull it up for you guys. I like to play with this dot and Mind Flay build, so that's definitely going to help with that talent build that I have going on. So I'm a fan of that one too. 20% on Mind Flay is a lot of damage. Like, they could have done like 5%, 10%. No, they went out the gate with 20. So that's really cool. Like I said, they're trying to trade off for what they did to the Mindbender, and we'll get to that right now. Idol of Yashar's damage done by 5% when Mindbender is summoned on a feared player was 15%. I kind of butchered that. Let me repeat that. Idol of Yashar's increased damage done by 5% when Mindbender is summoned on a feared target was 15%. So, that sucks, right? I thought they were going to nerf this last week, and they didn't. So I made a guide last week, and I said, play this build. And now that it's nerfed, there's no point in fearing a target now, because that's the base buff anyways. When you summon a Mindbender, it's 5% increased damage. So there's no incentive to fear the target now. So I guess it's, they're taking away the try hardness of the build. But to be honest, it worked half the time anyways. I would fear a target, summon my Mindbender. By the time I pressed the Mindbender button, the global cooldown on fear, by the time that's over, they trinketed or it broke of damage. You can't really help that in the battlegrounds, but a lot of people kind of counterplayed the build. They know when they see a Mindbender come out, it's a knee-jerk reaction. People are CCing you, people are running, people are killing the Mindbender, people are rooting it. Like, it was very hard to pull off in higher ratings. Like, people know about the Mindbender build. So, will this be that detrimental? I don't think so. It just kind of cuts down on the try-hardness of the plays you can make with the Mindbender build. And, it's more chill now, right? You get that 5% increased damage, or 5%, or the insanity regeneration, or the the different categories of the Mindbender Idol of Yasiraj. So right now, feared, you and your Shadow Fiend deal 15% increased damage. In a few hours, that goes away, and it goes down to 5%. So it's like it's healthy. You and your Shadow Fiend deal 5% additional damage. Healthy and feared would be the same thing now. So the try-hardness of the build's gone. And it kind of was a weird playstyle to begin with. You fear your target. You usually use your fear for CC, right? And Blizzard had it so we feared our target to do big burst damage, and then the fear doesn't break. So that's interesting. Oh, that's worth noting also that your damage won't break the fear effect. So I guess that's the main difference between using the healthy option or the feared option on the idol. So yeah, I guess it's, it sucks, but it's to be expected. A lot of people are complaining about the Mindbender build, so it's not too surprising that it got nerfed. Okay, so there are some more patch notes on Shadow Priest down here. Shadow, reduce the duration of Void Volley Horrify to 2 seconds from 3 seconds. So that's kind of weird because Void Volley went a whole expansion without being nerfed, right? During Shadowlands, they didn't touch Void Volley Horrify, and at the beginning of this new expansion, they nerfed it pretty quick. So that's interesting. I know a lot of people on the forums are complaining about Void Volley, but it's not so much as the Horrify that sucks. It's more the damage reduction. Reduce the damage of Void Volley by 30%. So that's kind of annoying. With everyone's giant health pulls, Void Volley didn't really hit that hard. So that kind of sucks. 30%. It's still going to be worth running, but that's a bit obnoxious for Blizzard to nerf the damage on it, because it's Void Volley. There's some counterplay to it, right? You don't stack on the priest. You see them cast their void form, you get the hell out of their range, their melee range. So you can definitely counterplay Void Volley, and you see a giant purple circle on the ground where the Void Volley is gonna land. But then people like, oh, you're rooted, or you're feared, or you're stunned, you can't avoid it. But that's their go. That's the Shadow Priest's go, is when they pop their void form. So I don't really think that's a valid argument. It's just annoying because people are complaining about the Horrify from Void Volley, but like all these melee out there, like Enhancement Shamans and Demon Hunters and DKs, they have these little micro annoying stuns that disrupt you, and that's extremely obnoxious to play against. But Blizzard goes and nerfs Void Volley Horrify. That's a bit disappointing, but whatever. Reduce the absorption value of Powered Shield by 20% in PvP combat for Shadow only. So when you bubble yourself, by the time the global cooldown is done on your bubble, pretty much the bubble's gone, right? Like, how much is this healing? 28k? So yeah, that's 28k. I mean, that's kind of a big bubble if you think about it. So I guess I can see why they nerfed it, but at the same time, like, if you have 2 melee on you, that 28k bubble's gone by the time the global cooldown is over when you bubbled yourself to begin with, right? So they're nerfing the absorption by 20%. So what's 20% of 28k? I don't know the math right now. We're just going to say what? We'll round it off to 30k, 20%. I just got off work. I don't want to do math right now. We'll just say it like around 6 to 7k less. 5 to 6k less. So, yeah, that's kind of annoying. They increased the mana cost on Power Word Shield, and then they reduced the absorb by 20%. So, I guess they think Shadow Priests live too long, like they're Live Lords or something. But they're priests at the end of the day. Like, a Shadow Priest, it's in the name. Priests are going to heal a lot. I guess they didn't like the self-healing they were doing. So they hit them hard with survivability. Alright. Reduce the healing transfer of Vampiric Embrace by 20%. Some more healing nerfs to Shadow Priests. So, like, if you look at all the other classes right now, Enhancement Shamans, Rogues for instance, Demon Hunters, especially Affliction Warlocks, we can all agree Affliction Warlock healing is straight up stupid. Like, right? They can just spam Drain Life and just top themselves and heal through your damage like nothing. So the fact I haven't checked the other classes yet, but the fact they're nerfing Shadow Priest healing, that's a bit weird to me. Like, even Rogues heal for an insane amount. So it's just kind of strange. Like, I feel like other classes have healing issues way more than Shadow Priest do right now. And it's in the name. Like, a priest heals. I don't know why, you know, Blizzard's going in this direction where they think Shadow Priest is just so self-sustaining that they have to nerf their survivability in many ways. Alright, last, Shadow Word death damage reduced by 20% in PvP combat. So that's kind of annoying too, because they made the new talents and new builds around Shadow Word death. Like the Mindbender build, there's a few talents that deal Shadow Word death. So a lot of our builds are going to include Shadow Word death in the rotation. So this is going to hurt. But at the same time, Blizzard did trade off, buff our direct damage, you know, Mind Flay, Devouring Plague, Mind Spike, Mind Blast, and then they buffed our dots. So I guess this is a fair trade-off. I shouldn't complain about it too much, but still, you hate to see it. Devouring Shadow Word Death became a staple in our rotation. You didn't save it for when they were at low health anymore. You just used it when you had it, right? So I guess Blizzard gave us this playstyle to use Shadow Word Death in our rotations in PvP with all our talents and builds, and then they nerfed the damage from it. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Alright, well, looks like that's it. So overall, I want to say the buffs favor positively for Shadow Priest. There's more benefits here than negatives. I do think Shadow Priest will be good still. I don't know about S tier, we'll see. But the survivability nerfs, oh, keep in mind last week they nerfed Vampiric Touch healing and Devouring Plague healing by 20%. So with those nerfs added to these recent nerfs, their healing and survivability goes down a little bit, and they're buffing their damage by a moderate amount. So they still look good, they still look like they're in a good spot, but we'll see. Only time will tell. I'm going to play when I get off work tomorrow, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. I'll try out some new builds, have a little bit of fun with that. That being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and let me know what your thoughts are. I'm very curious to all you Shadow Priests out there. And before I go, just remember one thing. Let the void consume you. See you guys. Till next time.